Hello, all you crazy people out there. My name is Michael, and GameMaker recently announced a new wave of updates that are going to be coming in the near slash mid to deep future. As we did last year, me and several other members of the GameMaker community, I thought it might be fun to bring some friends along to talk about them and pick them apart and see where we think they'll be going and possibly some other things that I haven't thought about yet. So, introduce yourself, guys.
I guess I'll go first. My name is Juju Adams, and I just found out I'm Michael's friend, which is lovely. I have worked in GameMaker for about 6 years, and I do lots of open source software to share with lots of people to help them make their own games.
My name is Stephen Loney. I've been using GameMaker for maybe too long here.
No such thing.
Same, yeah. What else do I add about that? I've been around for a long time and haven't achieved too much in the GameMaker community, but I'm still here. So there's that. Yeah, I'll leave it from that. I'm on the West Coast, Canada, near just outside Vancouver. So.
Hello, I am Tabular Elf. I do mostly open source software for GameMaker. I have been working with GameMaker for about at least 10 years now, and I'm living in Australia.
That's the important part.
Yeah, I'm Australian. That's it. That's all you need to know. Good enough.
We've had a fun time trying to set the right time for everyone here to come together.
What time is it in Australia right now, Tabular?
Nothing important. Like, it's 5:23 a.m. It's
5:23 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah,
god. Oh
yeah.
my god.
Yeah.
Is the sun going down or coming up?
What do you think?
It's Australia. The sun never goes down. That's it.
There is no sun.
Yeah, 40 degrees day and night.
How many poisonous spiders are in your room right now? That's what I want to know.
Well, surprisingly, none.
Oh, that's good.
Like, the closest thing I've had, like, of anything, like, at all was, like, probably a daddy longlegs in, like, last week. Actually, there was this one big giant spider. I can't remember what species it was. Oh, it was just inside the house, Just chilling.
Just hanging out,
Yeah.
popping out for a cup of tea.
Yeah. Yeah. Having a bit of Vegemite.
I guess we decided that the list of topics that we want to go over in order is basically the order that they were announced in the video.
Yeah, and I think first things first, we need to talk about that sweet, sweet GameMaker merch that they're not selling.
Where's my hoodie?
The hoodies are
I
neat.
want it. I need it now.
I managed to get a t-shirt off of the Yo-Yo Games guys like 4 years ago, and it's now getting worn out, and I need a replacement. And I there's nowhere to buy a new one. Nowhere.
Right. No, it was mentioned that they are opening up. They are looking into a merch store. That is a thing. So that's cool.
I don't know. I look forward to when they're selling stuff.
But I mean, even just a cup, even like a cup with the logo on it.
Couple
That would be
nice, actually.
just a cool start. Let's go.
I just want a doormat that says "Eat, sleep, make games, repeat," like is on the splash screen to the IDE.
That would be a classic. But, like, honestly, having a cup of coffee that with a GameMaker logo on it, it'd be fitting with the whole brand, Just make coffee.
Finally, a GameMaker coffee cup to go with the coffee holder that was the CD tray open function from the old days.
Yes.
Do you remember that story where if you put that in an infinite loop, it would lock up the entire PC?
I don't know that story. That's excellent.
Yeah, because the CD tray opening was like a hardware interrupt, and so if you just kept doing it, it locked up the CPU.
I simultaneously love it and hate it.
Interesting. No, I know what to do for my next game now.
When I got like a bag from Yo-Yo Games because I saw them at an event in the UK somewhere, and they gave us a GameMaker branded stress ball, which is very on brand.
So just something to take out your anger on when the YYC crashes for no discernible reason.
Yeah, it's
Shakespeare.
it's either that or Russell's head. Squishing him, yellow eyes pop out.
Oh my.
And with that, all four of us have simultaneously lost our potential invitations to the closed beta for new Runtime.
Oh,
Well, alright, I am back from this video. I'm going out. Goodbye.
Mission accomplished.
Can we just make this anonymous when we upload it? You know,
Yeah, that wasn't me. That was my evil twin.
evil
Yeah,
twin with the
people
British
let out.
accent that does check out.
Ignore him.
I think his name was Uju Jadams.
Somehow that ridiculous name is cooler than my own name.
It actually is.
Yeah, that rules.
Quickly steal it.
So is it time to move on to things that are actually announced within GameMaker this time, such as all licensees being able to build from the command line?
Yeah, that's neat.
Immediately, there's probably like out of everything in the update video, which a lot of things should excite me for. That was the one thing that got me like the most excited.
This is something that's
Like-
probably going to only affect a tiny number of people who actually have a need to be able to do that, but I do find it funny that I think it was the day before this came out, I was bothering Tabular Elf about like how you could potentially use this to like build for multiple platforms at once and that kind of thing.
That was my end goal. It's just, I have a library or a product I need to test. I can just press a button and it's like on every platform I have available, ready to test. And then this came out. And I was like, okay, time to get to work.
I have a question for you guys though. So I'm not yet a subscriber. Will this might be the kind of thing that pushes me over into the subscription? How about you guys? Are you there, or like, what do you think?
Well, I'm using the free sub thing that they gave out to all the permanent license users.
Right.
And like, frankly, like my purposes is more like a more specific sort of niche thing, but it's like useful for like just generally testing things. Like yesterday I was mainly doing a few tests for Elaine on input because she wanted some validation over the new input parser for STL2. So I just kind of pressed a button and within like a few seconds I had a build on Linux, Mac and Android ready to go, which was actually kind of convenient because when I did it on YYC, Android took like 3 to 5 minutes to build.
Yeah, no, that sounds useful.
Well, it is because like while I was waiting Android to build, Linux and Mac were already done, ready to go, and I had to wait.
From my perspective, because I needed to be all subscribed up for my job, the way I look at this is that it's going to expand what the people that I work with can do. On Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon, we had a thing called a CI setup, which is a constant integration, where we had a server that was spitting out builds for different platforms automatically, and it was just smoke testing it, right? And what I mean by smoke test is, does it compile, does it boot, does it crash before it reaches the main screen? It's not as good as a proper test, but it will tell you if you've done something that is wrong or is going to break stuff cross-platform.
Right.
And getting that all set up was kind of a nightmare because it was hard, actually it was almost impossible to build from command line. So we had to do all kinds of weird stuff. I didn't actually set any of this up. This was our DevOps guy set this up. By having command line building enabled, it's going to make constant integration, or continuous integration, sorry. It's going to make that a lot more straightforward to set up and a lot more effective.
And
So,
do you think this would make this would be a plus for GameMaker to be treated more professionally, as it has been treated not as such? Would this be helpful, do you think, in that direction?
So I think it's a really interesting question. That I think it boils down to lots of small victories. It's changing the sort of the industry's perspective on GameMaker requires a lot of small things and a lot of time, and this is one of those things, yes. But it's not the only thing, and this thing in and of itself, you can't point to this and say, oh, it's a professional tool now. This is just one part of the larger puzzle, right?
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
I'm always a fan in general of when something that is a small point of friction is just removed, because those small things add up over time as like new minor additions like this get added to the engine and just generally make it more pleasant to use. I don't have any complicated setup with a continuous integration server or anything, but it would be nice if I didn't have to like spend an hour a night trying to build the game for Windows and multiple versions of Linux just because I had to wait for it to finish before I could move on to the next one. And I could see that if someone was working on a mobile game and just having to constantly try both iOS and Android, it would be rather the time savings would add up if they could do that in some kind of a concurrent manner.
It also removes human error from the whole process. So the way that we're currently building for Skies of Chaos, which has got a new content update that came out a couple of days ago, is that we're manually building all the time. So I'm manually building in a specific config using a YYC for Android for a specific device, and I'm specifically building an AAB. And then in order to test the AAB, I need to run a batch script that I wrote up, which then unpacks the AAB and then installs that directly to the device. And there's just a dozen steps there. At any point, any one of these can go wrong. And if you've got compilation from command line, then you can just write a single script, double click it, and that runs and deploys, builds the thing, gets it on your device, allows you to smoke test it. And it just removes that element of human error from the whole process. Of course, it doesn't help you if the batch script is wrong, but hopefully you fix that before you actually get to building the game.
But ideally, it yeah, that makes sense.
But once your batch script is correct, then it's easy sailing.
Yeah, it's easy sailing from there. And this is especially useful when it comes to console as well. So mobile development is kind of a bit of a pain, but console development is really difficult for all of this stuff because there's just a lot of fiddly little pieces you need to keep tabs on. And those systems really are designed for command line operation. They offer you graphical tools, but it really is mostly command line. That's the intention of those systems. So this change is really good for testing lots of stuff across lots of platforms, and it's really good for professional users. I don't really see it being useful for free users, to be honest, or for people just deploying to Steam even. I don't think it's useful.
I honestly really find it more useful if you're like doing more than like one platform continuously, like over and over again, especially from a testing standpoint. Compiling and exporting, I mean, I can also definitely see like having a tool that automates that is also handy as well. I actually am going to provide a screenshot, but this is like the current extension that I've actually made for the tool that I was talking about when I was using with input. I can just take that, slap into any project, set the parameters I need, and then it will just build straight out to all those devices.
That's awesome.
With the same runtime, with the same config, with the same version, whether it's YMC or VM. I don't have to do any thinking.
That's impressive work.
This looks very appealing. I'm gonna have to remember to include this example in the video portion.
I can always send you the actual extension itself.
Yeah, man.
That's also
that's impressive work. That's really cool.
Yeah, the only thing that I kind of want to improve on this mainly is just, which I'm slowly working towards, like a custom Rust executable that can just execute the underlying commands instead, because my current issue with this only said if I want to like do more devices other than just like one Linux device, I can want to say maybe 2 or 3. I kind of can't do that right now. So the idea down the road is I would like to eventually support like just be able to provide multiple separators for each device, per device platform.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's impressive.
Thanks.
Hopefully that is a good visual example in that screenshot of what kind of thing this could be useful for. IDE updates, anyone? Or are there any remaining comments on command line building?
I think I'm mostly done. Yeah.
I'm excited for IDE updates. Is this involving the new workflow? Is that what this includes here?
The new workflow, like moving away from workspaces, new code editor, code editors. Where was the room editor mentioned specifically in the presentation too?
Yeah, so they mentioned a few things about the room editor. So I guess we'll just touch on this quickly because they didn't go into much detail. So they said that at the minute in GMS2, each layer in the room editor has a specific type. and it could be like an asset type or an instance type or a tile map type or whatever, filter type. But it seems that they're throwing the types in the bin, which is much more. It's much closer to how it actually works in code. So if any of you guys have fiddled around with layers in code, you'll know that you can actually attach more than one tile map to a single layer, and you can attach more than obviously you can have multiple instances per layer as well, and more than one asset per layer. And so the IDE is now actually going to reflect the code reality, which is interesting. I'm not sure what the UI is going to be like that for that. And then they said that they're going to make it easier to see when an object has creation code or an instance has creation code. And they said something really interesting here as well. Something that I haven't seen YOAG talk about formally or informally, for that matter. They said they're going to increase the flexibility of tile sets, which is... I have no idea what that means. None.
I know that over the years I've seen a few people like realize that they could put, for example, like a sprite on an instance layer or on a tile map layer in code in GameMaker, and haven't been sure if that was like how it was supposed to work or if that was just a bug or anything. Internally, layers in GameMaker really don't care what type the room editor thinks they are. The room editor is just calls them an object layer or an asset layer just for convenience. Perhaps we've reached the point in time where that's not really a convenience and where it would just be much nicer to be able to put anything on any tile layer, on any layer.
This feels like the default folders in the IDE being like the sprites folder, the objects folder, but you can put anything anywhere. In reality, doesn't care.
Kind of, yeah.
Kind of. It's just to help the user mentally categorize, I guess.
It's a suggestion.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the room editor is going to remove like the hard restriction on that, and and perhaps make it more like a suggested thing, or I don't know. Like it raises questions about draw order as well. So if you have two tile maps, is that drawn from top to bottom or bottom to top within the layer? It's kind of interesting.
I know I've wondered that and gone to test it multiple times, and I never remember what the answer is.
Right, yeah, and so I guess...
Like, are they rendered from bottom to top in the list, or top from bottom?
I have no idea. I've never relied on that feature.
I don't think I even know myself. The most I've like really ever known is like I can like move around elements, and it's like just kind of like whatever like that element order is. It's like it's rendered from the start to the end, I believe.
But is it then even documented to be official? Could it change in the future? Can we rely on it?
That's another question.
Yeah, that is another question. A question that I do not have an answer for.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why we still all use depth equals negative y in 2023.
God bless depth equals minus y.
Yes.
Or if you're really fancy,
Right.
depth equals negative b box bottom.
It's a classic. It's a classic. I wonder if we're going to see, and this is pure speculation, I wonder if we're going to see layers within layers within layers. I wonder if they're going to do that.
Layerception?
Yeah, layerception, so that it's more similar to a scene graph that people might be familiar with from Unity or Godot.
I am not, but I will go with it.
Yeah, so imagine you just have layers within layers. So some hierarchy of layers where you can apply a transform to a layer at the top of the hierarchy, and then that rolls down to child layers, and you could change the position of a child layer, and that will change children of that layer, but not stuff further up the hierarchy.
Yeah, I could see a lot of good uses for doing something like that. That would be
It's
nice.
really common in 3D.
In this
and
case,
it's
the
pretty
layers
common
would
for
basically
fun.
just be a container that you could put whatever you want into.
Yeah,
including other layers.
Yeah. I wonder if that's what they're doing here. Which would be interesting. I'm not sure whether that's good or bad, but it's definitely interesting.
One could dream. One could dream.
I feel like there's not that much of a need for that kind of thing in a 2D game engine where like matrix transforms aren't on the forefront of everyone's mind.
They're not? And you of all people, are they not?
Maybe.
Because when you think about it, and we're skipping ahead a little bit here, when you think about it with prefabs, when you drag a prefab in itself can have multiple assets, instances, and tile maps and whatever associated with it, right? Surely doesn't that sort of imply a hierarchy? Like a layer hierarchy?
Yeah.
I definitely thought that they contain like multiple instances, multiple GameMaker instances that you would put in the room editor for, like a UI element could easily have like 3 or 4 different components to it. It did not occur to me that that could include its own layer, though. That's also an interesting idea.
Because you're going to want to draw, just say you just have a basic prefab that is, taking Sky to Chaos as an example here, which is an arcade shoot 'em up, scrolling shoot 'em up. I can imagine a prefab that would be a road with a tank on it, and the tank can shoot a missile, and the tank has particle effects coming off the treads of the tank. And you're going to want the road to be on a separate layer to the tank, to be a separate layer to the missile, right? Because these things are going to want to be depth sorted in different ways. So that implies that prefabs have their own depth hierarchy within them. I just don't know how that's all gonna piece together. It's a kind of an interesting question. I wonder if we can even do that with prefabs. Like I have no idea. I don't know if the Yo-Yo Games have said anything.
I feel like in a speculative like sort of way, I feel like if we could do that with prefabs, I'd imagine like they'll shift the depth by a bit to make that work.
Right. It's got to be relative depth then, surely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that, of course, that implies a layer hierarchy where the layer depth is relative to the parent layer's depth.
Yeah, the more I think about what you're saying, the harder it is to think of a way for that to happen without having some kind of layer hierarchy like that.
Yeah. Again, I have zero window into all of this stuff. This is all speculation. So I don't know if this necessarily logically follows, or it's, whether this is even what's going to happen. But
It's still good to talk
like
and think about it, though.
Yeah.
I even feel like way back in the beginning of GMS2 when you had layers or folders of layers and other things in the room editor, that was sort of an idea that people had in their heads. Can we use this like this? And back then the answer was no. But perhaps not like consciously, but I feel like that's an idea that's been kicking around the GameMaker community for a long time, nesting things like that.
If you look in the room YY format, the actual JSON, if I remember correctly, it's kind of implied that you can put layers inside other layers. But I don't think it ever gets. Maybe it only gets used for groups, but it doesn't get used for other layers. But other layers I think, have an array of other layers that you can put inside them. Again, I think. Last time I looked in the room editor was about a year ago, so maybe that's changed. But
I wonder if that could apply to parent rooms and child rooms.
yeah, it might be related to that as well, to be honest. Yeah, you could be right.
Yeah, because that's like my main thought. If they were gonna have any like child layers in that regard, it's just parent rooms. It'd have to be that.
This is all very intriguing. I feel like they have deliberately not said anything to clear this up.
They don't want to overpromise. So,
Yeah.
Speculation is just so much fun, though, isn't it?
I mean, compared, I feel like this year they're a little bit more conservative with what they were saying than the previous year, which it was kind of fun last year, all this information. But yeah, I do want to touch on the new code editor. So apparently from the start it will be an optional thing you toggle on. Are you guys gonna lean towards this new workflow for the code editor?
Yes.
Probably.
Oh my god, yes.
I would love to try it, honestly.
Okay.
Fucking hate the workspace. God, I hate that fucking thing.
I'm also not a fan of the workspace. We deal with it. Michael, apparently you're okay with it. I don't understand.
I don't have the same burning hatred that most people do, but like it's still not weird.
It's a little weird. It's okay. It's bearable, but just barely.
No other code environment that I've ever used has like chained workspaces that imply an order to the code files that doesn't actually exist. but I've never like lost sleep over it or anything.
I'm just shaking my head over here, just like
Juju, is there anything in this engine that you haven't lost sleep over at some point in time?
I mean, literally no. I can't. Yeah, God, either for work or for hobby. I was about to say for fun, but I think that's probably going too far.
Have you ever had like nightmares about the workflow, like the current workflow system?
You know what? I can't confidently say that I have not had nightmares about the workspaces.
You're trapped inside workspaces, and can't get out.
I've had one of those once.
I believe it.
I think I had premonitions as a child. You know, like when you have those dreams where you turn up to school and you've only got your pants on. It's like that, but I've got to program everything using workspaces. Anyway, sorry. Yes. I'm sure we want to talk about something that's not my bizarre nightmares.
No, I want to hear more, but we'll jot it down for later.
Yeah. That's maybe for the after party, right?
Screaming about GameMaker after dark.
Okay, I actually love that idea.
Hell yeah, let's do it. Okay, but the only reason why I ever use a workspace for the code editor at all is just because, well, I at times, when I'm actually using GMedit and I actually want to build, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna build, and it's not GMedit's fault, but because it's just my setup. I had a whole computer format, and I just kind of forgot to set up half of my stuff ever since. I just haven't been bothered. But I just kind of switched to GMedit to code and then go to the workspace, and eventually just kind of went back to the workspace just because I was constantly building from it. But I'm not a fan of the code editor itself, just being the workspace. Just if I can just take out the code editor and just have it on its own window, and that's it. That's what I want, and this is what I need right now.
I will say that the inspectors that have been added to GameMaker over the course of last year have taken out some of the need for me to bang my head against workspaces. Like if I want to open up a sprite and assign its collision mask shape or something trivial like that, I don't have to click on it and open it in a workspace and navigate to it because I'm lost and I don't know where it is. I can just click on it in the inspector and do that without ever having to deal with the workspaces.
They've worked. I've still struggled with the inspectors. I think it's going to be okay in the end, but I've not yet been able to make them work well with me. It hasn't jived. So hopefully this new workflow it will work better. But
I'm praying.
Yeah. I must admit I haven't actually used GMedit. I think I looked at it for about 10 minutes and then just never used it again. Yeah, people keep telling me it's good. Yeah.
What told me was a rainbow syntax, just rainbow brackets. I'm in.
Oh yeah. Oh, so the color of the brackets is color coded, so you can see where the blocks start and end.
Yeah. It is helpful. It is really helpful.
That is nice. Yeah.
And in the new workflow code editor, it looks like they're taking it looks similar to GMedit, just injected into GameMaker, which I'm okay with. I'm good with that. Good.
Yeah,
so.
And also we can use the language server stuff to hook into VS Code as well, allegedly.
I feel like there's a bit of a convergence between just modern code editors, and we're just moving away from the days of a file of code which you can edit. A lot of VS Code and Atom and those kinds of more modern code editors have features like a lot of the the little navigation. I don't even know what these widgets are called, but that were shown off in the preview screenshots in the update video.
I think the only reason why a code file is still just text is because merging anything other than just text in Git or other source control is a nightmare. I think if it wasn't for Git, we would have long ago ditched the idea of code as being a text file that you store on disk. Would have been done 10 years ago. Yeah.
It is amusing to think that could be all Git's fault. Thanks, Linus Torvalds.
Yeah. I don't know whether it's necessarily Git's fault. We still need to work together. We still need to collaborate on stuff. But it's the structure of code just being a text file that gets compiled is in reality, the representation of code in an editor is not a text file. It's broken down way more than that. Yeah.
It's more like a tree in a lot of ways.
The text is just a convenient way of showing a human being what's going on. But I think the days of that are numbered as we move towards visual scripting more and more and more. So.
Anything else with regards to the IDE updates? Do we want to go over the language server bit briefly? I'm not sure if that's a term that most people are going to be familiar with.
I could definitely say having a language server and be able to support many other syntax or formats is going to be at least decent for me, because I don't have to open up another text editor just to edit the one file I need that's in a different format, theoretically.
Yeah, I'm really excited to edit JSON actually within GameMaker. It's like my dream come true.
Your two favorite things. Or maybe your favorite thing and your least favorite thing. It's hard to tell.
Yeah,
I might be jumping the gun here, and forgive me for heavy speculation, but apparently it's going to become easier with the new runtime to inject C++ code or something. Is there going to come a day when we have C++ support in GameMaker, and it's I'm building part of my code in this, and then is that a thing, or am I going too far?
It does sort
that
of
would
sound
excite
that
me.
way, doesn't it?
It seems like
Alluded
the groundwork
to.
is there. The trajectory could be going that
That was
way.
definitely alluded to down in the section where Russell was talking about the new compiler.
Yeah, so I'm just thinking if we were able then to have language support for C++ in the editor, and you're working on the extension, a C++ extension inside GameMaker, then your workflow is all there.
Instead of having to flip back and forth between Visual Studio and GameMaker.
On one hand, that'd be very cool. On the other hand, that's going to be trippy to some people. I feel it.
But if it's hidden though, if it's not it's not maybe not something you want to be putting out there to new beginners. Here's a tutorial on how to do it. I mean, if it's just if it's possible, that's cool enough for me. It doesn't need to be.
I don't even mean
out
that
there.
alone. I guess I mean more just in general, from perspective, oh hey, I have GameMaker, I'm using it. Oh, I'm just gonna code a bit of C++ in GameMaker, which for the new runtime that'd be more acceptable. But if you think about in terms of current runtime, that's definitely going to make a few people spun out.
Agreed. Yeah, the current runtime is not built for that.
Yeah, I had to write a Java and what did I end up choosing? Objective-C extension for a game recently.
For mobile?
And that was awful. It was so much work. Just getting a code editor to understand exactly how this stuff is going to be linked together was a complete nightmare, because the files exist completely separate from the context of a solution file or a project file that they're usually used to working with. And so having a language server built into GameMaker would make building extensions for specific use cases so much easier. All of that stuff will be done for me, mostly. Yeah, that was a lot of trial and error. That got pretty frustrating. But yeah, I don't know. They left that slide kind of a little ambiguous. They're like, oh yeah, you can there's some C++ being compiled here. I don't know whether that was user written C++ or whether that was C++ from the runtime libraries. And it's probably both. Probably.
I could imagine being both. I could also imagine just being the runtime library.
We'll have to find out.
We shall. One day.
I feel like there are so many cool directions this could potentially go in that I'd love to speculate about, but on the other hand, I know that Zach Reedy is working on this, and I've already given him enough gray hairs.
I think Feather gave him grey hairs as well. Big project.
Feather. Always view it as mini Zach.
I noticed in the video that they said they're going to put Markdown in notes files.
So we're finally getting to create our own to-do lists and things of that nature.
That's actually neat and useful.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about that. It's yeah, that's kind of cool. Also, I'm not sure. Would I use that? I think I probably would, actually.
I mean, do you guys use notes in general? I do keep at least like one notes file for keeping track of thoughts and stuff. I could make use of that, especially keeping notes within a team in an expected place inside the project.
I
Do
don't
you guys use
use
them?
notes, but I would say if I had Markdown in notes, I would probably switch to using them over like Obsidian MD, which I do use for like just writing things down in general and note tracking because it is, all Markdown.
I
So having that in the editor would be nice.
I don't use notes myself. I've done some pretty hacky things with them where you can use them as kind of config files, but I can see them being useful for documentation. And I mean, not just for open source libraries. I mean, just generally for project work where you're communicating with other people. Having a big notes file full of like, hey, this is how this feature works would be pretty useful actually.
Or just having a list of like your team's like code style right there in the IDE.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doctrine.
Even just having the ability to like have a link in there. So if I'm documenting stuff and here's a link to an API or like whatever it is, the documentation.
Yeah, even
that.
just like if you're confused, click here.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if you're making an extension for other people to have that in a note.
Yeah. I wonder if they'll allow you to link between other note files, so you can so you can build a URI from one note file to another note file.
Create like your own text adventure game.
That would be kind of dope, though, wouldn't it?
This little mini game within your like development. Yeah.
Or you could actually use that to build out a like narrative scripting system, right? Potentially.
If you could parse the note files themselves, yeah.
That's kind of spicy.
Now we really want this. We want this now.
Yeah, that'd be quite something. I mean, I guess that brings us across to the IDE plugins in general, because what I've just suggested is obviously ridiculous, but with IDE plugins, maybe that's even less ridiculous than it sounds, where you could script out, narrative design by using note files and some sort of IDE plugin, and get those two to fuse together somehow.
Basically, having the yarn spinner tool, but in GameMaker.
Yeah, or ink, or even twine. Could you do that? I don't know how you'd do that, but you could do that maybe.
I'm sure someone will figure it out.
Yeah, there'll be some C# runtime out there that you could probably plug into the IDE.
Yeah.
Probably.
Someone will be dedicated enough to like, I want twine in GameMaker, I'll make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, people have tried in the past, haven't they? They did, was it Half Buzz, I think? If I remember correctly. So Half Buzz is a twine sort of offshoot, it's a fork of twine.
Right.
So I'm kind of intrigued what people are going to do with the IDE plugins, actually. Sky's the limit, I think.
Just give Nick like a week and sufficient motivation to make something ridiculous, and he'll do it.
Finally, Discord rich presence, but in the IDE.
I'm already in love with that idea. That's amazing.
We'll just have a chatbot that goes straight from Discord to the IDE, and people can like enter chatbot's command in Discord to make the game.
Yes. No, but like I am already like using like an external app to just give me rich presence, like for GameMaker, and it's like it'd be so much more nice if I could just have that built in, so I don't have to run another app.
Hang on, the CEF, the Chromium Embedded Framework, is C#, isn't it? I think. I don't know if that's true or not. Let's just assume that's true.
Sure.
Couldn't you have Discord running inside the GameMaker IDE if you hijacked the frame and then had CEF running inside of it? I don't know whether...
So like Discord becomes a tab inside GameMaker?
Yeah, like, is that possible? I don't know. I guess we'll have to see from a security standpoint.
Are we going to go back to like, I think it was GameMaker 1.4 where you could have the manual in a tab?
Yeah. That's what I'm getting at, yeah. I don't know if that's actually possible, but I kind of want that to be possible.
Well, you know what? If we're going to have that possible, then I will also ensure that every time someone needs a problem solved, like, look up a function or an FAQ or something, they can just press a button and it'll open up a tab straight to input some documentation.
Yeah, right. I was thinking about this as like, if you could run a Discord instance inside CEF, inside GameMaker, suddenly you could provide like actually in the IDE like product support, right? Customer support.
Okay, you know what? I know what's going to
Fucking
happen
wild.
now.
Yeah,
Someone's going to put a Discord bot in GameMaker from the
Right.
IDE, so you can just boot up your bot and it'll just, display publicly what you're doing.
So
on
you're
a-
saying you're saying that within GameMaker, I could ping you when I have a problem with Scribble?
Yeah, I mean it's
Yeah.
going to be a whole new way to torture me.
And I'm
I-
going to make it happen.
I of course the limiting factor here is like, can you actually embed CEF or Electron or whatever inside a plugin? Because I'd hope that GameMaker stops you from doing stuff like that. That would be bad, I think.
I mean,
This feels
But
like
on
the
the
sort of
other
thing
hand-
that Yellow Afterlife is going to do just to prove that he can.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Don't tell him no.
He already did that with Godot last year.
effortless.
no, I can definitely see someone like probably maybe trying to put Discord bot into the IDE. I can definitely see that happening. I mean, who needs a whole chat when you can have a bot just ping for you?
Right. Also the closed beta for this is going to be the end of the year, so we've got what, 6 months to figure this out.
We've got 6 months to figure out how to make this idea even worse.
Yep.
The only thing I would say is that I wish I could just have the new runtime in my hands now. I'm getting impatient for this.
Yeah. When is the beta for that?
The only, time-related thing I've heard about new runtime is that closed beta will start, quote, in a few weeks from when the update video was out, which was about a week ago.
I'm excited.
Can't wait to get my hands on it.
I can't wait to find out all the ways all of the games that I've been working on have broken.
Yeah. More work for you. Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I love Yo-Yo Games and everything. Like I respect the work that they do, but it's going to be broken as fuck when it comes out. Like, it just has to be. It's such a big change.
Yes. There is one thing I do want to say about plugins, and this is kind of going back to the whole extensions, like CLI and all that. Like, the current extension I have right now, which I have already shown in a screenshot, the only thing that I would really benefit from having an IDE plugin version of that is that I could probably actually pull the configs and for each device instead of having the user type it out.
Yeah, because you'll have access to
makes
that
sense.
information natively, won't you?
Yeah, I have a few other extensions that would probably also benefit like that in a similar light. I haven't mentioned it, but I did also have one for specifically data files, or rather circumventing you have a 2 GB file in your data files, and all of a sudden GameMaker's copy that over and over and over again because you ran multiple builds at once. So kind of made an extension where it would just let you pick a folder on your computer, and then GameMaker could reference that folder. So effectively, it's giving you the ability to live reload, but more bare bones.
If someone had a large gigabyte size video file that was included in their game, you probably don't want to have to copy that to the temp directory every time you build.
Yeah.
Yeah, I ran into that problem recently. Yeah, what we ended up doing is building a specific config for testing that didn't copy stuff over, but it was a pain in the ass and it kept breaking as well.
Would you want that same extension I was talking about?
A bit late now. Could you have said that to me a year ago? That would have been grand.
It's never too late now. Never too late.
Yeah, new runtime. Yeah, looking forward to get my dirt little fingers all over that. Oh, they're gonna open source tons of it, aren't they?
Oh yeah, it's for enterprise, especially.
I know they
the
said
enterprise
Enterprise
stuff,
was going to be source available the way that I think Unity does the same thing for us.
Oh,
Yeah,
for
paid
lots of
subscribers.
money. Yeah, the
Yeah.
open source stuff for Unity, you have to pay fucking tons of money. 6 figures, I think.
Okay, my future self is going to jump in here because this is somewhat important. The exact wording that Yoyo Games has used for this is that enterprise subscribers will have source access. It is not necessarily open source. This is largely a legal/licensing thing where most free and open source software licenses allow you to kind of do whatever you want with the source code. Yes, I see you over there in the corner, GNU GPL, go away. Whereas if you're an Enterprise GameMaker subscriber or a professional Unity subscriber and the source code to those engines finds its way into other places and the company finds out, you can be assured that at some point in the future you will be receiving a message from a lawyer. Yoyo Games has recently made a decent amount of their code actually open source, for example their HTML5 runner and their Steamworks extension, and from the sound of it, some other things in the future. Those things have been actually open source. They now carry the Apache 2.0 license. But in all likelihood, the actual engine source code is going to remain proprietary for the foreseeable future. Just want to make sure that we're all on the same page there.
But I'm actually kind of finding it interesting because, like, if it's enterprise only, which means that you're just going to have to pay like $100 like a month to actually gain access to the source, or parts of it that you at least could access. Like consoles, you wouldn't have really access to unless you have like an NDA.
Yeah, I wonder whether this isn't going to have the effects that they want it to. Because the community's been pretty active in terms of suggesting fixes, especially for the Steamworks extension, but also for HTML5. But if they gatekeep access to the source, I don't know how much interest they're going to get from people to actually fix problems that they find inside the runtime itself. Because you just have dramatically fewer people actually able to see that and edit it and correct it. So
I can say at least for sure, at least, you know, just in terms of just HTML5 source just being completely open source, a lot of people have come in and contributed. Originally, people were just sending like, you know, reports, but then people have transitioned to making pull requests and issues.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting. And I do know that some people have been even saying that they might actually buy Enterprise just so they can actually contribute to the source.
Oh, really?
Or
okay, maybe my read on this is wrong then, because I'm way more cynical about this. I'm like, people won't want to do it. Blah, blah, blah.
Well, I mean, like obviously, like if you don't have the budget for it, it's going to be like not that much of a great thing to invest into. But I can like even I'm kind of like thinking about like I could, you know, spend a little bit more money just to get this.
Yeah, maybe for a little burst of time rather than trying to do it year round, because it does get expensive.
Oh yeah. Like I mean, at this point, you really wouldn't really want Enterprise anyways, unless you're like again like actually like developing towards consoles, so just have the budget for it. Because like having that kind of source code, most people aren't really going to really need that have direct access. It's really going to be beneficial for those who are actually either wanting to contribute fully, but you probably want that more of that contribution if you're like, you know, console dev, because console devs I could realistically see like needing to actually get things fixed ASAP.
Yeah, historically Yoyo Games have been really good at fixing stuff quickly, but if we can fix it ourselves, that'd be even faster.
Yeah.
The first thing that I'm gonna I guess this is a round table question. What is the first thing you're gonna do, or that you would want to do, if you had access to the GameMaker source? What's the first thing you'd fix?
I know there have been a bunch of like bugs related to buffers that I've found in the engine over the years that are ostensibly like a simple math error, but I can't think of any that are like outstanding right now because I think all the ones that I've complained about in the help desk have been fixed as of my speaking.
Stephen, what about you?
I would actually try to re-inject a bug.
Oh yeah, that's fascinating. Cool. Yeah, what word do you put back in?
There was a YYC optimization I found that if you prefixed like all the calculation with like a 0, it would like omit it out and like unpack the type of the value and make the YYC run like a lot faster. And I reported this to like to Mike back in the day. He's like, "Oh yeah, that's a bug." I'm like, No. My code runs much faster. So I'd be like, how can I put that bug back of like auto unpacking on compile? It just made code faster. So anyway, that's a side thing.
I think you win this one, Steven. I don't think it's a competition.
What's
I'm not
that?
gonna lie, like
I think you win this one.
I won't lie. I didn't really have anything much to say, but like yeah, like honestly, I would say if you're gonna add it back in, make it an option because maybe someone might not want it. I don't know, someone's crazy enough.
It showed me kind of like what was on the table if you had what's it called? What is it? Static typing or whatever. When you declare exactly what a type is, it kind of gave me a clue if we could set this is going to be an integer of just how much performance is on the table for the YYC.
I wonder how much the new runtime is gonna help with that.
Exactly. That's the unknown. That could be a lot smarter, and that may not even be a thing at that point. So.
Yeah. The thing that I would add is being able to force the Z position of sprites, tile sets, whatever, when you're drawing them, so that you don't have to keep setting a matrix to translate stuff in the Z-axis.
Oh, that's
that
a good one.
Instantly would make it so much easier to do 3D.
I feel bad that I didn't think about that one. Is it too late to change my answer?
No, it's not too late to change your answer, but this will be reflected on your permanent record.
What about just adding Z as a value to objects and everything?
Sprite index, comma, image index, comma, X, comma, Y, comma, Z. There we go. It's right there. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah.
Tabular actually gave me another idea for something that I would change, which is that, and this is, I'm gonna die a little inside as I say this because I was so done with 32-bit builds, but I would re-add 32-bit runtime for the, like something resembling an LTS version. I doubt they would give us access to that. But just for the people who have been relying on extensions that don't have 64-bit builds, who ran into problems last year when that was removed, particularly since like it was removed during one of the more broken updates to the monthly.
Yeah, that wasn't great. That was it. It was about this time last year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think it was 2022.6 was the last version with 32-bit.
Yeah. Rip.
In my opinion, I don't miss the 32-bit, but I do also acknowledge the people who actually do use 32-bit because I actually have known at least a few people within the community which I'm actually surprised that there's actually still people actually using Windows 32-bit on some machines.
We had a bug report on one of my projects pretty recently where someone was like, "Oh, I can't run this game. It's coming up with this error," and the error was, "This is a 64-bit build on this is a 32-bit computer. You can't run this." And I was like, "Wow, how old is your computer?" And it wasn't that old. It was not that old of a computer. So I don't know what the hell is going on in hardware land where people are still making 32-bit CPUs and put them into the public's hands. That's crazy to me.
I don't think it's so much of that. I think it's just like I feel like I have to actually double check this, but it might be like just some manufacturers just still ship like 32-bit either because like you don't really need 64-bit in their eyes, or maybe it might be like a speed optimization. I mean, this is kind of speculative and I'm probably wrong, but that'd be like the only two logical conclusions I could probably maybe think of.
Did they just install the wrong like Windows install, like a 32-bit on a 64-bit hardware system?
Could be, yeah, could be.
I'm surprised no one's trying to. I was gonna say like I'm surprised no one's like go. I'm gonna install Windows 11, install Windows XP.
You know what? I wish I could go back.
I miss it.
Someone told me a while ago that in a lot of countries where access to new computer hardware is not perhaps what it is here in the English-speaking world, there are still a lot of people running on like 32-bit Windows 7, just because it's hard to get, a fancy like Core i5, whatever we're up to now, in some places. So we're still on computers that we would consider quite old.
Yeah, unfortunately, at some point the whole system needs to move on. It's a bit like moving from USB-A to USB-C, right?
Agreed.
Same deal.
It's time.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, just I guess like at the end of the day, like I guess I'm surprised, but on that note, like I guess like there is like more to the world than you actually perceive, and it's like that's something that in general people don't really realize in terms of like just hardware land or software land. Like there's always going to be some edge case or reason why someone's actually using like one thing over another.
The min spec has to be set somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Has
could be.
CPU, yes.
As fun as it is to support the min spec, you gotta make a business decision at some point and make the cut.
For example, cutting multiplayer rollback because it didn't work right.
Fun times.
It was not multiplayer rollback was not very stable. No.
Well, part of it wasn't very stable, but a lot of people I've noticed also got really confused on how it is, because like most people used to just like GameMaker, like you can do networking and virtually that works fine no matter this like events, like whatever you're changing. But in rollback, it was like when you had a manage object, it was like you can only change variables in certain like events, and if you try changing them in another event or try calling something that did a variable change, it would outright reject it and just end the game.
Which is kind of like I'm just a straightforward, blunt person. Kind of crap design. Let's be completely honest here. Like, I don't know how that qualifies as a viable product. I genuinely don't. That seems crazy to me. If you just put this wrong variable in here, which is valid in literally any other situation in GameMaker, your game is going to just close immediately and not tell you what went wrong.
Well,
It's
it does
insane.
tell you, but it's like it just comes with a big pop-up error and it's like, oh, you can't change a variable in like a read-only sort of state. Which like in their defense, I could kind of get why they actually like have it that way, and it just makes it generally a bit easier to like manage rollback and then having drawing like separate. Because mainly this error comes up whenever you change something like in the draw event, which you shouldn't really be manipulating variables anyways.
Yeah, my point here is not so much the limitation tech-wise, it's the fact that it just absolutely does not square away with the way people use GameMaker.
Oh no, I agree on that as well. Like that's why I feel like in their defense, I can see from their perspective. But like any other average user, that doesn't work like that. Realistically, they need a system that can accommodate the average user while also still supporting the rollback goal.
Yeah. And I think the subtext for that whole rollback thing is like, we're going to go back to the drawing board and think about a different way to do this.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. Yeah. What a shame.
From what I heard, if you used it in the way that GameMaker wanted you to use rollback, it worked great. But if you tried to stray very far from that, it would be just endless errors and weird problems that you'd never encountered before.
Yeah. The presentation of it as like, oh, you just tick this box and it works is not quite that easy, is it?
How often is that the case in like computer software in general, let alone netcode?
Oh, yeah, you do make a good point. I mean, it does work every now and again. Like, GameMaker be able to do a 64-bit build in previous versions. You could just tick the box.
ARM Linux.
Yeah.
Didn't have any problems with that one.
Yeah.
Well, I did have a problem with like a Pi, because when I actually got a Pi, like I got a Pi, upgraded to 64-bit instead of like 32-bit OS, because like yippee, I can finally use it, and then I realized that GameMaker can't actually compile to 60-bit Pi OS. It's okay, I'll just leave it for a while. And this is probably more my fault because I didn't really technically make a report on it because I kind of just forgot about it. Came back to it and went to like try it like many months later. Still doesn't work. But I switched to a 32-bit version of Pi OS. Works fine.
Oh yeah, that's still a problem, isn't it?
Yeah, I haven't checked like as of recently. It's like, but then again, like I said, I probably also haven't still reported a bug on it either. Which just tabulate out things.
Yeah, but tabular things are good things. You figured out how to do the multi-platform builds. like within 24 hours of that being announced. That's pretty awesome.
Well, less than 24 hours, and probably with
Yeah.
like not a lot of sleep either, which is both amazing but also very concerning.
Have you gotten any sleep since the update video came out? Because every time I've talked to you,
Well-
you've been like, yeah, it's 4 in the morning and I don't feel like sleeping.
Well, if you saw my message earlier after Juju asked me if I would, I hope I wake up soon. Let me try to find it. Right. What if? And hear me out. I never slept.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Australians don't sleep.
Shall we have a quick chat about prefabs? Shall we get into it with prefabs?
Did we skip over modding?
Oh, we did kind of skip over modding, didn't we? Whoops.
Well, I mean, we'll go on that and then we'll go on about prefabs because I am a little bit interested in the whole mod.io aspect.
Yeah, it was really interesting. That I wasn't expecting it.
I know. It's also kind of a funny coincidence too, because just like the CLI building, where we're talking about like less than 12 hours before the update, we'll also talk about mod.io.
So like, guys, I have like no context of what this means. I know it's like, I know what game modding is, but like, what are they talking about? Like, mod integration?
Okay, so like it's essentially just mod integration. Like essentially be able to like, kind of like how you have the Steam Workshop where you can have essentially like custom content uploaded and users can download it. I believe that's like the main aim they're going for here. But like more native into GameMaker, which I'm kind of curious on how that would work. I don't expect that to have like, you know, full integration. You can upload a room and that would just let you download that room. But I
don't know what this means really. Like, they were very vague about it. Yeah, I mean, it's potential for some really good stuff there, and I get the impression that part of the pitch is that this could potentially be cross-platform as well. This isn't just PC, Mac, Linux. This could be console as well? Question mark.
Honestly, console would be kind of nice, but I'm not sure how consoles still feel about mods. But then again, Skyrim has like the creative workshop, which do have modders actually adding to it. So
yeah, there is some stuff going on consoles. So I don't know whether Sony and Nintendo be up for it, but I suspect Microsoft probably would be with the Xbox platform.
I know at least I've actually at least once talked about this before, and I'm pretty sure it's now in a channel that's no longer visible. It was the modding on the mod discussion channel that we had.
Yeah, let me just quickly go make that visible for you again. Tabular, sorry.
Oh, thank you. Splendid. Just a little snippet.
How do I even use Discord? Edit channel, there we go. I am extremely good at this job.
Computers, how do they work?
Nobody knows. There you go. You should have visibility for it. It's in the freezer. It's in the archive section.
Let me see. Yeah, I see it. I know I've said something over here about it. Right, yeah, right. I also made a point about Minecraft Bedrock Edition as well, because that also has a marketplace full of like essentially add-ons, like hundreds of add-ons, and this is like community-wide, and some people are even actually selling it. So just like the Creative Workshop where you can actually buy and download mods, and Minecraft Bedrock Edition where you can buy and download mods, and this is all cross-platform too. So it's not far-fetched in a sense where mods are supported, but the ecosystem is more like on-the-fly generation and more in control on the developer's end. Like,
yeah, I'm reading some stuff from the mod.io blog, and there's specifically an article on we're doing this cross-platform. Like, I would imagine, because one of the major draws for GameMaker is the ease of cross-platform development. I mean, it really is GameMaker and Unity and kind of Unreal. If you're willing to put up with a bit of iffy performance, it's really those three engines that are able to export to basically everything. So it seems like kind of an obvious thing for mod.io to do, to put mods via GameMaker cross-platform, which is kind of crazy as a value proposition. I don't know. I don't know how much this would cost. I don't know what the financials on this is or what the business case is, but that seems extremely powerful to me.
I mean, yeah. But like, I could also wonder like how far this will go out over the years, because I could imagine down the line more and more games that do want modding would have that be able to just expand that to console.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a significant step forwards. So I don't know. I don't know what the future holds there. I think we're gonna have to wait for more news. It seems like a pretty serious thing to me.
Yeah. But like, I guess like the main thing is like, especially since they are focusing on like cross-platform, the main thing at like the whole getaway, and this is like kind of speculative, but also like just from like previous experience with like how other console games work, it's just everything they can do in modding would be down to the developer and what they allow. So you can't do everything ever crazy, like take a DL out and just inject it straight into the game.
Yeah, yeah. Especially for platform holders, they're pretty fussy about what content they allow on their platforms, and modding tends to stray into niche areas of interest sometimes.
Yeah. But if it's like,
yeah,
if it's more like like having an interpreter language where you could basically generate like code, but like with specific functionality that's limited to only your game space, like sandbox essentially, then that's generally okay.
yeah, I was thinking more on a content side. It would be pretty trivial for somebody to make offensive content and then push that out as a mod. And
Yeah.
on Steam, there are limited rules against that. It's not very well policed, or at least it's very hands off. Let's put it that way. But
Yeah, I can say yeah.
yeah,
I hate that my first thought here was that like how Nintendo like allowing somebody, how long would it take for somebody to like upload an adult content mod onto Nintendo's onto the mod database and then download that onto their Nintendo Switch, and then all kinds of questions are immediately busted wide open.
I mean, okay.
it's called the TTP, the time till penis. It's actually a real thing. Yeah.
Okay,
So it's a
okay,
measure
but-
of like how safe is our game, is like what is the time that you could play this game before accidentally seeing a phallus downloaded onto your screen through user generated content.
Don't get me started. I already have been talking to like just people in general about my game, since it's like heavily moddable. Like even like the core like game data, the blocks, a bunch of interactions. I'm kind of making it more like exposed, so you can literally just poke your head in and just change a block or two if you wanted to. But I already know someone I know in particular who wants to make a little bit of a particular mod for it. I won't go into the details for that, but not sure how to feel. I'll admit.
Yeah, and it when you start doing deals with platform holders and you're not super confident in how to moderate content, whilst it's nice that this stuff is cross-platform, I think the business reality is that it's going to be really hard to find a way to make that work.
Well, I have a middle ground in that aspect at least. There are definitely websites for modding communities for that kind of people.
Activity, yeah.
Yeah, yes, that kind of activity. Yes, like
What did we call them a minute
Like-
ago? Niche interests?
Niche interests, yes.
yes. Like, I have seen those websites, and I know what's on there. Like, they have like virtually mods for like almost any game. I've even seen ones for like Genshin Impact at one point.
Oh, really?
Yeah. People have like private servers for Genshin Impact, and then
Okay,
they
that makes sense.
extend
Yeah,
that to like modding. Yeah, they could never do it on the actual game.
yeah,
Instant
okay.
ban.
Oh, yeah. Fascinating.
But yeah,
It's really interesting.
but like
Yeah.
for Nintendo's case, I was just gonna say for Nintendo's case, I have definitely seen some in terms of like Smash Bros Ultimate and Mario Maker. I know people have technically attempted to make some of those mods, and they have eventually like levels, and they have been taken down like eventually.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, so
Nintendo would
it
be on top of that.
yeah, well, within like a few hours of like noticing and like actually being reported, but yeah.
I wonder if this is one of those things where to deploy cross-platform you whitelist certain mods that you think are high quality or are acceptable.
I could have.
Was that how the Bethesda Creation Club worked at first? I don't remember.
Pretty much, yeah. That's my understanding.
I wonder if Mod.io actually offers that same functionality, because that would be really good on that front.
It might be something that happens in the back end. There aren't many games which are doing this cross-platform. So Space Engineers is one of them, and then there are a couple of others as well.
Okay. I'm just taking like a quick look over the API. I mean, I don't see something directly, but I do see like a few things, so I think there might be something in that regard.
I wonder how much of the API is going to be exposed to us, because I don't know. I don't know whether this is going to be a library that gets written that then you can plug into the new runtime, or if this is just going to be an extension that effectively is just performing REST API calls off to a web server somewhere. I have
Apparently,
no
you
idea.
can add metadata to like mods, so you could technically make a flag, and you can like probably filter it on GameMaker's end.
Oh yeah, that would work. Although, hopefully the filter gets done on the server rather than downloading a bazillion things and then filtering it on the client, because that's terrible for bandwidth.
I have no idea. I'm only having a brief glance, but
They didn't say anything about how like technically the mod would interact with the game, right? I've kind of been thinking in my head that it would be something like you download like a YYMPS from the server, and then that would contain extra game data, sprites, anything, whatever the developer felt like, and then the game would figure out how to handle it from there.
Yeah, we've had a few conversations informally with Russell about this, but I don't think he mentioned anything specific, did he?
yeah, like even
In
the
terms of
update video
distribution.
kind of just said like mainly like user creator level, like just custom data. So like as I said, it's like I think it's more down to like what does the developer actually want to allow than like probably like dropping a any GameMaker file into it. But probably in the new runtime, that would change, and we would get that kind of capability.
I wonder if this might be, because they didn't really say, did they? I wonder if this might be a new runtime only sort of deal. Or maybe it will be just a mod.io extension that just downloads stuff from a server. I have no idea.
Well, yeah, like my highest expectation would be at most right now is something akin to the Steam Workshop, but like cross-platform. And then
Yeah, that's where my brain's at as well. Yeah. So correct me if I'm wrong here, but Steam Workshop integration is basically it just downloads a bundle of files and directs you to where the files are. Yeah. Yeah, that's probably going to be the most flexible, but it does also require the most work from the developer to do that, to integrate that into the game. Not a bad
Thank
thing.
God we have libraries.
Well, yes, indeed. Yeah.
I mean, we virtually have a library for like everything you would need. You have you want sprites, there's collage. If you want audio, well, I have two. There's probably others that made their own.
No UI libraries yet. Oh no, actually no, that's a lie. There are loads of UI libraries. No,
there's a lot of UI
libraries.
libraries. What we don't have though is Bento. When Bento.
Well, yeah, but it's kind of interesting. I mean, I guess we. Do you want to move on to prefabs and UI because it feels like a natural?
You know what? Yes, that would be a good thing to move on to.
We've taken a couple side quests to prefabs earlier in this conversation, but we never really sat down and given them the proper look over.
So, as the only person on this call who has released a successful UI library, Michael, how do you feel about this UI library, this UI prefab system? What's your take?
In my head, I'm trying to like picture this as something being other than Unity's UI, but I don't know if I'm creative to actually think about what something that's different from Unity's UI toolset could be like.
They showed some quite diagrammatic sort of this is what it might look like kind of stuff, didn't they?
Because like they talked about like checkboxes and sliders and that sort of thing, which looked like, as we were talking about before, like a prefabricated object that you could just like drag onto the into the GameMaker room editor, whatever the UI layer happens to look like. I don't know. Maybe I've just spent too much time fretting over dealing with UI and Unity in the past, but that's just all I could think of.
Yeah, with all the anchor points
Yeah.
and the
You looked at it funny, and all of a sudden, all your UI elements are on the wrong quadrant where they don't belong.
I'm really curious about how the UI system's actually going to feel to interact with. Because I'm casting my mind back to sequences, and the sequences editor is clumsy. So I'm a bit concerned about the UI stuff not being very easy to use.
I feel like the sequence editor was like cool when it first came out in the 2.3 beta, but it hasn't really been improved upon any in the intervening 3 years.
And interacting with it with
Actually,
code is super hard.
I do have two questions. One, which it's already been asked, which is like, how flexible is this going to be, and more importantly, can I use pure code to just use the UI elements? That's my main like two thoughts on it. Because, I mean, I find having a UI editor fantastic, even great, especially for everyone who wants games. Like, make a game with pretty UI and not have to worry about all the code side. But I also like doing things in pure code. As again, I'm basically making a game that's like literally just the core engine and then everything else is external. So
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So, kind of hooking this back into the modding API, what if somebody wants to design a new menu for a game? They can't do that unless there's some way to invoke the UI prefab system at runtime.
Right.
I know
And
at least like. Sorry, I just want to like mention like, because like I know filter and effects is like kind of like the closest thing to prefabs right now, and you can invoke that on the fly of code as it is.
Okay, yeah.
I'm
Because
just curious. Go on.
Yeah, I just I think you and I are both curious about the same things. Like, what's that actually going to look like?
To that, being able to do that with the UI stuff in code would be an ideal option. Yeah.
That's another thing too. Like, could you also with the UI like just place it in a room? That'd be another interesting thing.
Yeah, I think that's the intention, isn't it? Where the UI exists on a GUI layer.
I feel like the way it was pitched was to do something like that and to make it like allow users to design UI without having to manually code coordinates on the screen.
Of course, that for us incredibly technical people, we're like, ugh, visual interface. I just want to write numbers into a box.
But if they do it well, they might win some of us over. If it's done.
Yeah. I hope so.
Let's hope not too well. We don't want Bento to just never come out.
Well,
Juju will be immortal.
I don't look. All right, let's address the elephant in the room. So Bento, for the people who don't know, Bento is a hypothetical UI library that's been sitting away at the back of my mind for the better part of 3 years. And I never got round to building it because GameMaker has said again and again, or Yoyo Games have said again and again, oh, we're going to make a UI system. And I've always just been like, well, they're probably going to do a better job than I will. Let's be honest. And so I've kind of been putting it off until the UI system comes out. So I'm really eager to see what they've come up with.
Yeah, they were bluffing though. They're hoping that you would make it and they'll just inject your code as a prefab.
steal all my ideas.
Yeah.
We're just gonna do what he did. They both said simultaneously.
Yeah, pointing at each other, Spider-Man style. I think that a visual editor for UI is basically essential. Let's be real.
Yeah.
And I think a code way of interacting with UI is also probably essential, which is kind of interesting.
I mean, the UI stuff would probably have like some sort of IDE plugin as well.
Yeah,
You
you're
mean to like build
right.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like I could imagine like them having IDE plugins and prefabs roughly around in the same time, or if not, like just prefabs. But
They do seem to be talked about in conjunction pretty often.
I mean, like, because like even the particle editor is like its own plugin, and Feather is like a plugin, and it's like you can't exactly just have a particle like editor and be able to put particles in the room as well. Like you need a system for that at least, and that'd be the same for UI. You can't just be able to place UI elements in without at least having some kind of editor.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right there. I think they've got to have some new IDE elements there, which almost certainly would be done as a plugin, which is interesting in itself.
I'm sure it won't be entirely code only. I just don't really know what it'll look like.
Yeah, I mean, with especially with all of the anchor point stuff as well, which, whilst fiddly in Unity, is honestly pretty useful. So I don't know. I mean, like the whole deal with prefabs, just in general, is kind of exciting from a library perspective, because it means it's easier to include a library inside a project and then reuse code, which has a lot of applications for businesses as well who are actually using GameMaker as for professional stuff.
I guess that's sort of the half of prefabs that we didn't talk about, aside from the ability to add prefabricated objects to the room editor as you would with a UI element. Just being able to basically include part of another project in your own, whether that's like your own borrowing code from a previous project that you worked on, or borrowing code from like the Scribble repository or something like that.
I can definitely find that like the most useful, like especially for, like extension makers who are just like, okay, I have an extension here, but I also need like this library included, and I mean, I don't think I had to repeat myself like for anyone else here, but it is a little bit frustrating when you have to like import like a very specific version of some code base every single time, when it's like I already have this. I don't need to have all this like downloaded and installed.
I wonder if we're going to end up in the JavaScript dependency hell.
Is odd.
Yeah.
I think the best way to deal
Yeah.
with that would be that if some popular library author were to just include something silly, you just like hit them with a newspaper until they take it out.
Yeah, I mean, this is why we have public repositories that you can fork, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody does something really bad and really stupid, then you can just fork it and cut them out of the equation.
I know definitely one person has looked to like at least one of my repos and forked it and told me in DMs that what I did wasn't great.
Yeah, there are right and wrong ways of going about that. That's maybe not the best.
To be fair, like I do agree with them. It wasn't the best like setup, but it also works. So, but it had no reason to really change it.
Yeah, it can be a bit awkward, can't it? But yeah, and also they mentioned this alongside package management as well. So it sounds like prefabs are going to come at the same time as package manager, maybe.
That does sound like good news and stuff. And also, I want to bring the tie into this too. I know it's further down, we're going to talk about it, but the marketplace as well, how it all ties in.
Mm-hmm.
I did see, I forget his name, on the forum mentioning how they are going to be connected. So prefabs and like the marketplace and I guess packages and stuff, which would be nice.
That's another thing that's been being teased since the Stone Age, is the marketplace, and hasn't arrived yet. Still,
I think I had conversations with Yoyo Games about the marketplace 5 years ago.
I hope the fact that it seems to be relevant to so many different upcoming things mean that it's like going to be like crucial to actually add finally and have it be live and functional.
I'm rooting for it. I'm this is something that I think should be done well, and
It's been a long time coming. It's been needing to happen.
It's kind of wild that itch.io is a better marketplace for GameMaker than GameMaker's website.
Are there still like GMS1 assets on the front page of the GameMaker marketplace? Because there were just like GMS1 assets on the front page of the GameMaker marketplace well into the 2.3 era.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not the best.
speaking of itch.io, and I'm gonna ask mostly from you, Juju, but also probably Drago. What? How's your experience between working on the marketplace versus itch?
Oh boy, that's a good question. Do you want to go first?
I think I can best sum this up by saying that my favorite thing about the marketplace is when I try to update something that I've already posted on it and it just says no thank you without telling me why.
At least it's polite.
And that's why I don't think anything that I have on the GameMaker marketplace has been updated since about 2020.
I find both to be difficult to maintain and update and stay on top of. So yeah.
There's a recent problem too. If you build with the more recent versions of GameMaker and someone tries to install it from an older version of GameMaker, like even more recent kind of one, it just won't install and it won't tell you why.
Oh, really?
Oh, it silently fails. Oh,
So
that's
I had to actually go. I have an older version, an older beta version on because one of my projects requires it, so it doesn't error out. And I was building the extension out in the modern version. I had to go and copy paste stuff over into a new project, then upload with that one, so it worked everywhere.
Jeez.
So it was okay, but it's like now there's times that people could be for there's reasons you need to be an older version for certain projects, and it just won't install. It just silently won't take it because it's for the newer build, and it's something to do with the new resource management system and all that. So
That's pretty ugly.
one more
Sounds like
conflict that So I was like, I could spend 15 minutes uploading from the older version and kind of rebuilding it, and have less complaints. Like that sounds worth it. So that kind of stuff needs to be ironed out.
Yeah. Kind of hard to do that sort of forward compatibility stuff, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
But some kind of warning. I don't know.
Right, it really should error. Yeah.
There's just nothing there. It's just like nope. It's like okay. Yeah, but I even had that where that was relevant to me is I was looking to update the Steam SDK from the marketplace, and I was needing to use the 2022.1 beta. And even the latest SDK won't install. That's when I first noticed it. It's like it wouldn't take the SDK build. So, and then I clued in why that was happening. So, anyhow,
I think it's a lot easier to make the itch.io page attractive. And it does require quite a lot of effort to do that, to be fair. I actually got a lot of help from other people to make that work out, which is lovely of them. They were doing it all for free. So it's regardless, if I had more skills, then it would be less of a pain in the ass. But on the GameMaker marketplace, you just cannot make that page attractive. Like even just the default layout of those pages is ugly as hell. It's just a user experience nightmare in so many ways. Not least, it's ugly as sin. So from that perspective alone, I think the itch.io service is a better service for GameMaker package distribution than GameMaker's actual website, which is a problem. In terms of uploading builds and maintaining builds and stuff, the GameMaker backend has a lot of has a couple of extra steps you have to go through, like you have to stage a file, I think, and then publish it, which seems so unnecessarily complicated. There's like a lot of stuff going on there that I shouldn't have to deal with. Like if I want to make a particular package, the current package, or an option to download, I shouldn't have to press 3 buttons to do that. There should just be a tick box. And itch does that fantastically well. So there's like a lot of little process things that make it harder to use the GameMaker marketplace. But also squarely, it is just an ugly website with terrible UX. And so it makes it very unattractive to use that. But I don't really think it's unsavable, and I don't think it's that much different to itch.io, which is interesting. But I don't like using both. I much prefer using GitHub. So
I could tell because I won't lie, I am looking at both the input pages right now, and neither of them have been updated in like a while.
Ages, yeah. So maybe we should update it to the latest 5.6 maybe, but honestly, I suspect that GitHub is driving more traffic than both the itch and the multiplayer and the marketplace.
It just definitely still work, but I find that it's a lot like less painful work than dealing with the marketplace. Like I still have to like format the page and write a description that isn't like placeholder text here and that kind of thing. But it doesn't feel like the pulling my hair out kind of work that is trying to remember like what I have to do to appease the file uploader to make it actually accept whatever I want it to accept. And then if something goes wrong on itch, it's usually my fault. Like I've accidentally uploaded the wrong version of whatever I'm working on, or I forgot to like post uh, words English like a devlog or whatever, and be like pretend I have my act together and that kind of thing. Whereas with the marketplace, it's a lot more like feels like I'm not in control of whatever is happening to it.
Also, it has that weird tab which just lists out all of the assets in the bundle. I don't know how that's useful.
I work well. Okay, on a few occasions, I actually have found it to be useful, like especially for paid assets, where they say like like they have a bunch of these things. You can kind of get a quick glimpse of what they exactly have. Where if something's like a DLL or like pure GML, you get like a kind of sense of what it actually is. But I will say, and I'm looking at it like right now in the marketplace as well, it is not great for input because there is just so much on the screen. Like,
Yeah,
I like
and
if it went for
the library's gotten bigger as well.
yeah, like if it went for my mouse, like having like an infinite scroll wheel, I'd probably be scrolling here for like a little bit, and I'd rather not deal with that.
Yeah, it's like I'm not sure what I'm learning by looking at that.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of the things where it's like it should stay collapsed by default until I expand it.
I would love for that tab just to not be there. I'd love to have another tab where I could potentially go into more detail about functions or features or more than just an introduction, or perhaps I could use Markdown to format text. But
honestly, I don't disagree with that, but I also would prefer preview still because I can definitely see from especially past experience in the marketplace, people will definitely not detail anything. There's always one person or a small group that would just not detail anything. You have an extension name, you have a very basic gist, you can either spend $5 or just go somewhere else.
All
yeah, that's a
marketplaces
good
have
point.
that problem though.
Yeah, I think you make a good point, especially if you're doing this for your money is changing hands.
Yeah, like I can like I said, like at the end of the day, you're spending money on an extension which is possibly going to help with your problem. You want to know if it's actually going to help your problem, especially if budget's tight. Like the last thing you want to do, especially on a deadline, is buy something that might save your project and realize, oh, I'm exporting to Mac and Windows and Linux, but this is only for Windows.
I think it might help if there was a better returns policy on this stuff.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because if you open it up within about 30 minutes, you're going to discover whether it's bullshit or not.
But then is there going to be people that the problem is, people who like take the scripts and copy it, whatever, and return it. I mean, that's always a problem, but
yeah, yep. I don't have an answer for you there.
Yeah, I know that's the issue.
But also, those people were probably never going to pay money anyway. And as long as this is only a drain on Yoyo Games' infrastructure, and it's not a drain on the developer, I'm not sure us as developers really get to care.
That sounds like there'd be more work needed on the part of the tool developer to showcase, like make a YouTube video showing here's what it does, make it clear. I think it's more on their part.
Yeah. As a tool developer, that's the bit that I hate doing. So
yeah,
that's the bit I'm not good at.
That's
Writing
why
the code
I'm
is what
here.
good at, so.
Yeah.
Honestly, yes. Thank you.
Yeah, just make the videos for us. Thanks.
Yeah.
Just been waiting for input 6 to be officially finished so that I can run my mouth about it more.
Yeah. It's almost there. I think this maybe suggests that Yoyo Games needs to put more work into promoting stuff off the marketplace. I mean, what's well, I don't actually know off the top of my head. What's the percentage that they take off of your sales on the marketplace?
I thought it was 30.
I assume it's 30 just because that's the magic number that everyone uses.
Which I'm going to use some strong language here, is fucking insane because they do zero work to promote anything. Like, they do zero work for that 30%.
Well, at the
Like-
moment, especially, that hasn't been updated.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that marketplace... Yeah, I mean, that takes somebody 10 minutes to do that. Like, they haven't updated the thing in ages. The bandwidth concerns
Wait.
are
So
trivial.
they take 30%, and the refund policy, which I actually kind of need to double look into. Does anyone know roughly what that's like off by hand?
No idea, sorry. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm gonna have to look into that then, real quick.
Yeah. Like, they're taking 30% and they're not doing anything with that 30% that they're taking. Like, so the server costs are not going to be that much. It's going to be absolutely tiny compared to people downloading GameMaker, the IDE, and the runtimes, which are many orders of magnitude more use. That's just blatantly a bad deal. So, one, why would you ever sell anything on this marketplace? But number two, if they did actually put more effort in, then they would not only get more traffic for GameMaker, the engine, but also for the marketplace, and then it would also justify the 30% take.
You know what? I thought the refund policy was gonna be great, but I'm incredibly mistaken. It's actually pretty decent. They let you just do a refund straight up. The only thing that's like stated in there is like they basically want you to just delete all copies, which is like
Common
Yeah.
courtesy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I pinky swear to delete this copy of $100 asset that I just bought. Yes.
But otherwise, you have like about within especially in the European Union, you have about within 14 days of your purchase to just do a refund without any given reason. Kind of like how Australian kind of works in terms of refunds, because you can refund about most things without a real reason, unless you like almost definitely broke it somehow.
Well, Britain left the EU, so I wonder how long that law is going to last.
Kenzak when.
Anyway, cut that from the fucking video. Ugh. Do not want to talk about Brexit in the comment section.
I'll save that for the After Dark bit.
Yeah, that's the after dark bit.
Yeah, we left
Put it
you
on
in
Patreon.
1867. So,
Oh yeah, Canada, right? So I was like, but you live in the US, just making the same mistake.
yeah, no, they left before that. They forced the hand.
Yeah.
Anyway,
they,
another-
they got out.
We've got UK and 3 former UK territories in this call here.
Strong live the Commonwealth. Yeah. Something about the Commonwealth.
Like King Charles on a little boat shaking his scepter, being like, "Come back here."
Well, you know what? The Queen of England shut down our parliament here like 10 years ago, so they still have power, just so you know. Side note, but our government got shut down by England, so
Wow.
Oh no.
yeah, like 10 years ago. It was amazing. Anyhow,
I've completely
Yeah, back
forgotten
on-
everything
back
else I
on
wanted
topic.
to say about the marketplace.
Yeah. It's a fucking marketplace. I am genuinely excited about prefabs though. I think that is going to open up a whole new way of sharing code, both inside teams, between personal projects, between different people, open source, paid for. Like, there's a whole world of stuff that's going to unlock. And we might actually see dependencies where somebody builds a really cool buffer library and somebody builds something on top of the buffer library. That's kind of the dream, right? Is where we start building on top of each other's work, and then get angry at each other when we release major updates that break everything.
but there's
That's
going to
the
be
dream.
like built on something to be like, well, this prefab needs to be purchased or packaged. We're going to get like a little notification.
Yes.
You can pay $20 to have everything, or get discounts. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
What do you do when
Yep.
there's paid packages?
Okay, so I'll get to work writing is even, and I'll charge $1.99 for it.
And then you do is odd, and that's going to be $3 because that's odd.
But if you want documentation, it's $20.
Yeah, and extended lifetime support and warranty. That's $20 per month. For 12 months. Yeah.
But if you want the version that's all that plus a bunch of free cat pictures, that's $35.
If you want a heated seat, that too will cost you money. So I think because we've moaned about the marketplace, and I yelled into the void about multiplayer. I think the last thing that we've got is the runtime compiler to talk about. Is that correct?
There's also the minefield that is AI. If anybody feels like going there,
Oh yes.
Oh.
On the
I'm
final
sure nobody's
page on
going
our
to have
show
any
notes.
strong opinions about that.
Yes.
Shall we talk about the new runtime compiler?
I feel like
Let's do
I
the
feel
happy things first.
Yes, let's talk about the happy stuff. I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued by the new runtime on compiler.
Yeah, they've said some. I've got mixed messages from Yo-Yo Games. At one point, I seem to recall Russell saying, "Oh, it's going to be blindingly fast," and then somebody said somewhere that, "Oh, actually, we're going to aim for somewhere between VM and YYC." And then I think in the video they said it's going to be about as fast as YYC. So those are three very different messages.
I think like the main like thing which I've mainly got was like they're basically aiming YYC performance, which should be what we expect. But they're also kind of, looking at making it better than YYC, because the whole intention of the whole runtime compiler, so it's not going through like several stages, because even I've seen like a bit of the C++ like generated code from YYC, and that's got like a bit of LLVM mixed into it from what I've noticed. I imagine they're just basically skipping, cutting out a couple of extra steps to make it better.
Something else that they've said is they're going to try doing asynchronous code compilation. So they said that on a channel on the server.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it compiles as you write it.
I remember that
like
too.
Yeah, so you just write something and in the background it'll just compile, ready to go.
Yeah, so you don't have to wait for the whole thing, because nowadays when you press F5 or F6, I suppose, it checks all of the files to see if there's been any changes in any of the files, and then it will package up and compile any assets, including code, that have changed, and then it will build a runtime, and then it will build a binary, then it will execute the binary. And that's like a lot of steps that we don't need to do, because most of the time when you run the game, not a lot has changed since the last time you run the game. So I suspect our build times are going to get shorter. That is an assumption, a big assumption, but I think subsequent builds are going to get really fast.
With regards to performance, I do specifically remember them saying that it should be as fast as YYC by default, and since they're still working on the compiler and different optimizations, I think the word was they expect that it will be a significant amount faster, but that is still a bit of a to be announced, just to what degree that will be true.
Kind of a fuzzy statement, that, isn't it? It's like, yeah, we're kind of aiming for this.
Sort of like a set your minimum expectations here, and the rest is a little non-committal.
Yeah. I mean, I don't blame them for being non-committal. I don't really know a lot about LLVM. This is a technology that's obviously super common, but it's just outside my wheelhouse.
I just know on a super high level that it's basically you can compile any language to native machine code if you basically the language designer tells it how.
Yeah, so you can kind of imagine like taking like, say you made a custom programming language, which I've seen a lot in common in like a bunch of like community wide, like they just make like chicken, I guess, for example, and then LLVM could essentially just sit in between and just compile whatever you basically have in that programming language format, and then just convert it into like, you can essentially convert it to like a format in which LLVM understands, and then it converts that to assembly code or / machine code.
I don't know too much about compiler design, but yeah, in the the days of old, if you had a language and you wanted to compile it to machine code, you probably would have first just translated it into C, the way GML is translated into C++ for the YYC, and then just compiled the C or C++. But LLVM sort of allows you to cut out the middleman, is my understanding.
Yeah, okay. Is this the .vm2 file that's mentioned in the presentation? There's a graph. There's a graph that Russell showed where it says GML to .vm2 to .o.
Yeah, I I have like a screenshot here.
You're
Like,
gonna have to
somewhere.
find
I
that.
don't
But
think-
was that like the flowchart?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, yeah. There you go.
Okay.
That was the one, yeah.
Tabular. I'll just.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is .vm2 is that the bit that LLVM is operating on?
Like whatever its like intermediate representation is.
Yeah. Just curious. Yeah.
Because the
so
.o is like the machine code object files, and then the game is like all of that put together with the static libraries and whatever else they need.
Yeah, so the .o is dynamically linked, I'd imagine, and then the stuff at the bottom is statically linked.
Yeah.
Maybe. I could be talking out my ass there, actually. Don't quote me on that.
It does say GMlib, so there could be like more to that aspect, but I don't think I could really say what it is.
Yeah, so my technical knowledge here is not enough to really make any solid statements about this. But having said that, the fact that they're doing the compilation by looking at the representation, the intermediate representation, rather than transliterating it into C++, surely means we're going to have much cleaner output. Also, probably a lot more secure output as well. Why I see it at the minute is still kind of hard to break down and start playing around with, but it's not impossible. I'd imagine once you pump it through LLVM, I'd imagine the security is substantially improved.
Yeah. There's one thing I do want to talk about, the new runtime, in terms of like how they actually compile the assets. And I've also been interested about this as well, because they've kind of also mentioned about this with like WAD files in particular. Like just be able to just essentially either on the fly or during compiling, just essentially just create assets in a nutshell. You can just package anything up. Which
it's interesting, isn't it? I wonder, because they're making this WAD file so explicit, I wonder if it means we're going to be able to have what they call in Unity asset bundles, where you can download part of a game.
Well, that's the thing, because I've actually had briefly talked to Russell about this when we actually had dynamic texture groups like added in, and they like kind of like hinted at like, you can use it for modding. It's like, that's great, but I don't really see this like a modding thing. I see more like basic texture pack support, because like you can edit the textures and you can load it in.
The way that I've seen asset bundles used in Unity is in two cases. One is DLC, paid for DLC, where it just doesn't bother downloading the thing until you pay for it. So if you've got some, big expansion pack that's a mission pack or whatever, then you don't package that with everybody's game and then just unlock it. You only download that asset bundle if you have the entitlement to that DLC. And the other way I've seen it used, which is very common in mobile game dev, is where you only download maximum 100 megabytes. I think now it's actually 150 megabytes of data onto the phone. And then as the player progresses through the early stages of the game, in the background, you're downloading content for the next stages of the game. And we do this in order to get around some limitations on the Google Play Store, I think mostly, but also the iOS App Store, where you can only download a certain size of file over LTE, 4G, 5G connections. When you're on Wi-Fi, you can download however much you want. But yeah,
that is a little bit interesting, because I've definitely known some games in particular that let you download like gigabytes of worth in terms of package, but that's like more like all in one go and then you play the game, versus like as you're playing the game.
You can always download as big a file as you want, but it is a limitation on LTE wireless network connectivity. So for the phone network, when you're on Wi-Fi, you can do whatever the fuck you want. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. But
So when you're trying to maximize your audience for mobile games, you want to make sure that anybody can download it for any reason, anywhere, and quickly. And so you break down the game into multiple asset bundles so that you can stream the content in as the player progresses.
Yeah,
so it's quicker.
Which I will roll back to the dynamic texture groups aspect, because this is going to be important to the whole WAD thing. Because obviously that is like the main use case. Either it's going to be for purely DLC content, because that makes it super easy to just extract textures, and especially since you can do also music as well. just have that like separated. But like my only main issue is because again, someone who actually does prioritize on modding, it'd be nice to actually be able to do something internally too, or like create things on the fly. And I have been at least given confirmation that that essentially the WAD files themselves we can create on the fly. We're giving essentially the whole tool set suite of it.
This sounds more and more like it's gonna possibly tie it back into the mod IO item on the list from earlier.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
Yeah, which is why I said like it would make more sense for the new runtime, especially because like right now it can work here, but it'd be like limited up to the developer. But when it hits new runtime, it'd be basically you want to make a texture page, you can make a texture page. You don't need collage and make surfaces and do all of this for you. You can just make it.
Yeah, which is going to be amazingly useful for optimizing games.
I believe recently they added the ability to like load a sprite sheet or load a GIF as a sprite ad, and then have actually all those images on the same texture page instead of putting them on different ones, which is already sort of like a not even a half step, but a quarter of a step in that direction.
On that note, the sprite add async does kind of already do that for striped sprites.
Oh, really?
It puts it all into one texture page. Yeah.
Okay.
So they already are working slowly towards it, and I believe they even did mention, and I can't really 100% recall, but I know GIF support's also somewhat in a similar mindset as well on that front.
I've noticed a pattern with Yo-Yo Games where they test out future features by sort of sneakily integrating them into smaller features that they're releasing earlier. So they've been experimenting with... Yeah, right, it does make sense. They've been experimenting with prefabs by doing the filter system. And they've been experimenting with plugins with Feather and with the particle editor. So this feels like a pattern of behavior. I've also noticed in some console debugging, I can see that the console runtimes have got like an entire layer of compatibility built into them, which makes me so when you look at the call stack for a function to, for example, for profiling, you can see the names of all of the functions, and I'm seeing compatibility layer stuff in. So I wonder, like, talking to Russell informally, he suggested that they've been moving towards a modularized new runtime for many, many, many years.
I've definitely gotten the feeling that they've like tested the waters with certain like minor, or at the time minor additions to GameMaker or new features before really wholly committing to it.
It's interesting. I wish they would communicate a little bit better about that, though.
But they may
every
not
now
want
and
to
again,
if they want to pull back on stuff, though. Maybe they're like wanting to test it, but not,
I guess like they just don't want to like as as mentioned earlier in the whole discussion, just not trying to generate too much hype and too much promise.
Yeah. From my end, my specific use case, it's kind of frustrating when something random breaks. And then you find out later, like, oh yeah, we were just trying this thing out. It's like, yeah, can you tell us though, please?
They don't have to like publicly announce that, hey, we're making this change as like a pilot test for something else that may or may not happen in 3 years. But like, surely the people who are, professional developers with console exports might have reason to know that stuff ahead of time.
All I'd ask for is, oh, hey, we've been doing some maintenance work on the back end in the string functions. That's all they have to say. Like, oh, we're just tidying up the code. Something might have broken. Whether or not they're doing this, 5-year long-term project to build a new string API is irrelevant. But just kind of hand-waving, oh, we're doing some maintenance.
Also true.
And then I'd know, oh, hey, I should test the string functions to make sure they haven't broken my Android build at the last minute.
But don't you have adequate unit tests to make sure of all that?
Oh yeah, I
Sure.
do have adequate unit tests. Yeah,
For everything.
Thanks for asking.
Yeah.
Yeah, for everything. Yeah. No, I definitely have the time to do that on a team of me and me.
I know. I'm kidding.
It's when I release an update to the game and I get 50,000 reports telling me that it's broken.
Yeah, those are my unit tests, yeah.
Yeah,
the players.
my unit test is the open source community.
Yeah. I'm with you.
I have, and I think all of us have seen this. A while ago, there were some import problems with, what was it? It was with YYMPS. Every now and again, it would just import blank code files,
Oh yeah, I remember that.
and that was going on for months, months and months and months, and I never managed to reproduce it.
The worst bugs are always the ones that have like a random like shoot from the hip 10% chance of actually happening.
Do you remember where every now and again you'd open up GameMaker and click on, I think, load project, it would just hang and crash?
Oh, I remember a bunch of issues that have been
Like,
related to
yeah.
that sort of thing.
What time? When? Like how? Like what year? Like again?
What year?
Okay, not gonna lie.
Was this the 2019 time that projects would just corrupt themselves? Was this the 2020 time when projects would mysteriously like move all the assets to the root of the asset browser? Was this the 2021 time when random code files would just be empty?
Okay.
Or is this the anti-piracy time where it would replace all
Okay.
of the sprites in your project destructively with piracy symbols?
I'm going to
classic.
say this. You've made me flashback to a horrific nightmare with an older project, which is kind of technically the current project I'm working on right now, but like redone better in 2.3 slash latest. Back when we were like, in the 2.2 days, I remember opening up a beta version of GameMaker, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't GameMaker's fault. It was just a sheer coincidence. But I went to load up my project, and I didn't really have it like backed up at the time because I didn't use source control. It was every person who never used source control's mistake ever.
It's a rite of passage.
But basically, just as I started loading in, instant blue screen of death.
Oh. Oh no.
And it's like, but like it happened in a way where I felt like it was kind of like GameMaker caused it, but I don't think it was GameMaker that actually pulled the trigger. Because like it didn't happen since.
The crash that ended up causing GameMaker to just hang and destroy itself when you opened up a new project was related to some security stuff where there was a weird memory leak. And a pointer wasn't being cleared up or something. I can't remember the exact details. Which is like,
wait, so...
ugh. And it wasn't their fault. It was actually the library they were using for some of the security. I wonder if that was related to Tabular, because that sounds like the kind of thing that would blue screen a computer to me.
Actually,
Yeah.
I remember one GameMaker crash where GameMaker crashed so hard that it corrupted its own installation, and I wonder if that was related.
Yeah, could be.
Okay, but I'm going to put this on your mind. As for the project itself, do you want to know what happens to the project? Was it salvageable? Was it completely gone? What happened? Well, the truth is that the only thing that really broke in that project was just the asset browser. And in 2.2 where pretty much everything was like in its own separate folder, like sprites and such, there was no folders. The folders were just gone.
That is a comparatively light sentence for blue screening while opening a project without source control.
Which is like, it's like probably the most gracefulest thing. But of course, at the time, I didn't really know how to like fix a project, so I just painstakingly made a new project and just manually re-imported everything over.
Yeah.
I think I had to do it by hand because the tool. Actually, no. I think I could use the local package tool to actually port it over. So I was really fortunate that like I didn't lose anything.
Oh god. Do you remember when GMS2 didn't even have a package manager? There was no local packages.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Dark days.
I remember when that was first
I
added, and I was like, wait, I don't have to manually copy all these files anymore?
I wouldn't copy. I just use the marketplace and just make a proper asset, upload it, download it.
A couple people did do that. I wasn't smart enough to do that.
No.
Now that we've gone firmly off track, I do actually need to go to bed pretty soon
All right.
because I'm getting a little sleepy. I'm no Tabular Ralph. Shall we touch upon the whole AI thing and then call it quits?
Look, okay, but I just want to say one thing. Just
Sure,
take,
yeah, sure.
take a page out of my book. Don't sleep. Sleeps for the weak.
I am afraid I am but a small rainbow pug. I am
Juju is weak.
Deeply flawed. I
Weak.
request sleep. Yeah.
Weak.
Maybe one day when I become Robopug, I will be able to go 24 hours a day.
Cyberpug.
Until I am Cyberpug, then yeah. I don't know. Like maybe we can call the AI in GameMaker Cyberpug, and then I can live on forever.
Oh God. Instead of
Juju,
Clippy, you get
Juju will live on
Cyberpug.
forever inside all of our IDEs, but don't even need the Discord
What
integration.
do you mean? What do you mean live forever? Like he is going to live forever until he makes bento. He's not going to go
I
anywhere.
can't die. Yeah, I cannot go to heaven. I'll be trapped on the mortal plane as a ghost until that fucking library's finished. Anyway, AI in GameMaker, cool. Opera has a partnership with OpenAI. Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, when I first heard that, I immediately was like, "Oh no, I'm concerned."
Like, where is the training data coming from to teach AI to use GameMaker? Like,
That's my
I
question.
know they said in the update at least, like it's mainly like the manual they're covering.
but there isn't that much code in the manual.
I do know
It's
that
more-
when a bunch of people asked Russell about this in the Game Maker Kitchen Discord afterwards, I guess you could call it downplay it, saying that it wasn't going to be like code focused, at least at first.
That makes sense. So I saw an
Yeah,
example.
yeah.
You guys may have seen it with, like on Twitter, the guy posting like about in Unity they had it where he could be like create cubes at this range, whatever, and they would just put them in. Like is it something like that, just to assist, like create this kind of object, sparse it out in a range, and it would do it. So not so much code.
It's more kind of like how you have like ChatGPT where you can kind of ask questions, but it's like specifically GameMaker focus. But for the manual sort of side, like you can ask like a question about like what is a shader, and it'll give you back what a shader is, or like a certain information like in events or whatnot.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the impression I was getting at. Like, you could ask it if, like, what is the difference between, like, end step and regular step, or, when should you use an async event versus just not using an async event?
I
The answer
have
to which is
seen
never.
recently. Oh no! I'm gonna have a hot take. I have seen recently on the GameMaker subreddit somebody copy pasted an answer from ChatGPT about what sort of database structure somebody else should be using, and the answer, I'm not going to outright say it was completely wrong, but it was so vague as to be unhelpful. I'm a bit worried about that.
I mean, to be fair, you do have valid concerns, but this was also ChatGPT, and ChatGPT, which I know I've said in the call as well, it's more generalized rather than specifically focused.
Yeah.
Because even in the main slash GameMaker server, like when people were originally using ChatGPT just for AI help, that was like a whole slippery slope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just because the kind of questions people are going to ask are not necessarily going to be questions that are answered in the manual. For example, what shape should I make my wall's collision mask? Like you can't really answer that without understanding the shape of the sprite, because the wall could be a circle, it could be a diamond, it could be a square, it could be a crazy weird shape that needs pixel perfect
Yeah,
collision.
you do bring
Is
up
your
an
game
interesting-
top down or isometric?
Well,
Yeah.
right, yeah, precisely, yeah.
Yeah, like you do bring up an interesting observation. Like, yeah, like you'd have to know way more than that. But like, I am definitely curious in that aspect, because the only way you could realistically do that is if you had some kind of AI that could additionally like extract like your sprite or like what your settings are, and then kind of compare from that. But
But how do you train it?
Yeah, like that's the thing. Like, I don't think there'd be a world where you can train that without having some sort of like existing code base.
And a lot of it as well. That's the other problem.
Yeah.
I think, and here is my ultimate hot take. This is the Julian Adams AI hot take. The current iteration of AI is nothing more than a fancy search engine. that's what this. Yeah, at least within this context, and I think that's generally true. But this particular implementation, if they're training on the manual, then the only thing you're going to be able to search is stuff basically mostly from the manual, and that's just a search engine.
I actually think like Stack Overflow would be safer to use than Google AI search, because at least you get like feedback on this is a terrible answer, or that kind of thing.
Yeah, everything's a terrible answer.
Everything's a terrible answer.
I guess there's one other concern as well, which I know the manual has gotten a much better on that aspect, but I know it's not still perfect. And I guess like this is also like just kind of like adding on top of it, because like when we had script execute X, and that originally didn't work on built-in functions, and I made a ticket for it, they said they passed it off into the back, like, you know, someone to review it and, you know, to talk about it, and that seemingly one day just started working in a version of GameMaker. It wasn't mentioned in the patch notes really, and the manual didn't reflect that change either. So it was like it was basically like a whole gray area of like, is this a bug or did my feature request get accepted?
Right. And then like, there's a disconnect between actually what GameMaker's doing and actually what the manual says.
Yeah, and like the worst part is because like if it was so vital to me for everything I use, I legitimately got concerned. But I basically just kind of swept under my own, thinking like, you know what, I'll just keep it here as long as I can and not really alert anyone about it. But then I eventually had to, because there was a very particular bug with it where it didn't work so much on any built-in functions with optional arguments such as max and min, because it would take whatever the first value was and just return that.
Oh, okay.
Which was very bad.
Yeah. I'm starting to feel like this AI and GameMaker thing might not be a good idea, guys.
I'm going to try not to predict the future too much, but I really hope that Yo-Yo Games take this in as small steps as possible.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Like, I don't feel qualified to say if AI has a future in game development or not, but like a company biting off more than they can chew with AI and then regretting it about 5 minutes later is a story we've already heard many times.
I definitely do think AI can be helpful. It's just the problem is that for it to be really helpful, it needs like a really large database. Like GitHub's I think it was like Copilot. Like that itself like can generate like, you know, code that's like, as far as I've heard, like pretty well done. The only issue is where that code came from.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they were dealing with copyright.
That was a whole thing.
Most stuff on GitHub is going to be copyleft, but the specifics of those licenses is really dodgy. So if it's GPL3, I can't remember, there's one of them, which requires you to make derivative works open source as well. That is an absolute stinker. Just cannot use that work in proprietary work.
Because if that gets up in the AI, you technically, a company could have a product and they could force it open source without them even knowing that that's required.
Precisely.
Yeah. That's dangerous.
The new GPL family of licenses, I think.
Yeah. Whereas I generally release stuff onto MIT license, which is, you know, anything goes, which is fine. I'm not sure what the Apache license says, and the Apache license is pretty popular as well. And I think that might be attribution. So that's also a massive problem as well, because how do you attribute your AI-generated work when you've coalesced the knowledge of 10,000 people into, you know, a script that's 100 lines long? How do you credit those people, right? If it's all Apache license, you have to credit each individual who's contributed.
That's fine for a human who's using the code, but for an AI who's just feeding a terabyte of code into its machine learning algorithm and then question mark comes out the other end.
Yeah. There are real concerns here. This is actually really serious, to the point where I am aware of not even like, we're talking like triple figures here. So I know of like 100 companies that are all struggling with this, because, you know, I'm friends with a couple of lawyers, and a couple of lawyers have said, yeah, we've had a lot of requests about the legality of all of this stuff. and that's like the UK games industry. It's just going, how do we do this? Like, can we do this? And yeah, the jury is out on that so far. At least for code, for graphics, that's a whole other kettle of fish as well.
Yeah, well, yeah, like I've pretty much been seeing everywhere at this point. Like, just about almost every community is like mostly gone against it, except for the ones who are like heavily AI driven.
And even those ones might be in grey area as well.
Yeah.
Even the ones who think they're in the clear probably aren't yet.
It is definitely a hard problem. It's
yeah. It sounds like Yo-Yo Games are being intelligent and are just completely avoiding this problem by just not training it on stuff that they specifically do not own.
I know that Russell has been very vocally against all of the Web3 shenanigans, and it seems like that caution extends here as well.
Yeah, I mean, henceforth why they're just focusing on like mainly the manual and like the GameMaker tutorials and / blog, I believe, because it's like it's the only kind of area where it is basically like more or less theirs, but or like at least at least from like collaborators where they are free to use it without like any concerns or consequences.
I'm looking forwards to what they call it, like actually in the product. What are they going to call it?
Clippy 2.0.
Can you imagine if it's just like Clippy, but with like the GameMaker 7 gear icon?
The smiley one?
The smiley one?
Yeah, they have absolutely got to do that. Sure, that's the obvious.
I put down in the notes for this this call that if it doesn't look like Clippy, I'm switching to Godot.
Ooh.
Oh.
Those are fighting words.
The stakes are high now.
Yeah. Oh, and also the smiley face logo, its mouth needs to animate creepily like a haunted doll.
It has to be like a 3-frame GIF, but with the timing of each frame being slightly off.
Yeah, like uncomfortable.
Look. If they make the AI part like an IDE plugin that's open source,
yeah, there you go.
There you go. You can just add it in. If they don't have it, problem solved. We'll just make it ourselves. Just put it in.
Put a little sound effect like. Oh,
imagine like Animal Crossing like noises.
Typing into the AI assistant in the IDE. Please make yourself more obnoxious and also use the Mr. Saturn font.
Yeah, there we go.
Approved.
Beautiful.
Honestly, it would make more people use it, I think. They'd be like, wow, what's this bizarre thing?
That's not the workspaces? Oh, wait, sorry.
Yeah. Oh, don't get me started on the fucking workspace.
They're okay. I take that back.
I'm not willing to go that far. No. Right. I think we've run out of stuff to talk about. Is that right?
So are we finished keeping Juju and Tabular Elf awake longer than they should be?
Long enough.
I never sleep, except for when I lay down. But you never had that from me.
You know what? I actually got around too. So.
All right. Yeah, I do need to eat something because that's something that you need to do to stay alive, apparently.
Yep.
They remind me. I feel hungry again. Might have some more Vegemite.
I need to go.
Shall we say goodbye to the audience?
All right. Just gonna any closing thoughts? Any projects that you want to show us? Is that how people do podcasts nowadays? I don't really keep track of this stuff.
I'd like to finish with something first, if that's okay. Because I'll need to pop off pretty quick here, but I want to say good job to the Yo-Yo Games team, or GameMaker team they call it now. So if anyone's listening in, it's actually been a really cool direction and stuff's pretty cool. So even if we say that parts are broken here and there, it's overall a really cool piece of software, and I'm excited.
Yeah. I will add on top of that as well, like despite like the many like issues I've had experience here and there, I am kind of glad like the way GameMaker it has been going. I'm happy for it. I'm like it is like honestly I appreciate it, like every last bit of it.
I know I've been kind of derisive about certain things in this list, particularly the marketplace and especially the marketplace, but at the same time, this is probably, I feel like, the most momentum GameMaker has had in a very long time.
Yeah, I think I can agree with that.
It's like probably the most exciting like year probably out of like everything else in this year, which is I don't know how to say about that, but good job. Made my Mia.
I definitely think that like the questions that we've had to ask about what's upcoming are the most like interesting kinds of questions that I've seen people asking about the engine in a very long time.
Yeah,
Actually,
I definitely agree with that.
One
Yeah.
thing we have technically glossed over this entire time?
The hoodies.
Fmod.
Yeah, lead
Oh,
A's,
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe that could be a separate video.
I think Line would want to talk about that anyway, so it'd be good to have Line here.
I'm just going to be extremely happy when I don't have to look at workspaces anymore. That is the bar that needs to be cleared here, and anything after that is upside, all upside from there on.
Before you know, we get our own Juju editor.
No. Just sounds like you're editing me. I don't want to be edited. Keep your hands
It'll
off
just
me.
be a code window with a spray of Juju next to the JSON GIF thing.
Actually, you know what?
then-
Okay. It's curse idea before we end it off here. You make an entire editor in GameMaker using UI everything, and then you use an extension to just let it compile into like your project. Bam. Your own workspace.
Oh, great. So as soon as they remove workspaces and add IDE plugins, we're going to add workspaces back.
Yeah,
Is that what you're saying? Oh.
but
No,
in
right,
GameMaker,
that's enough. No, I'm done. We're done. This conversation's over.
No, like in GameMaker.
Australia's
So you
out of
make
the
a game.
Commonwealth. Let's go.
That's it. I mean, I'm not going to get political. I'm not touching that with a fucking 10-foot pole. All right, thank you for everybody who checked this out. I appreciate your time. I think
This is always a lot of fun. I'm glad that you all seem to have as much fun with the screaming as I do.
it was good for. I don't know how much does it get edited down, but this was almost 3 hours.
Yeah, it has been almost 3 hours.
It's been a long time.
It's almost 8 a.m.
I do gotta get
Okay,
running
cool.
here. Nice
Cool,
to meet you
right.
guys. Out
Yeah.
for until next time.
All right, we
Steven,
shall
it's
say
been a
our
pleasure.
farewells.
Yeah, likewise. Take care, guys.
Have a good day.
Bye.
See ya.